So, hey, thanks for coming to my house here. Welcome to this little Zoom call for the Ability Center. So I work at the Ability Center. My name is Dan Wilkins, and I am the executive. No, wait, I'm not the executive director. I don't know where that even came from. I'm the director of special projects. And what I've been doing for the last 2 or 3 years is researching our 100-year history. We're a 100-year-old CIL, so we're very, very old and very, very happy to have made it for 100 years. We actually started out as a polio hospital in 1920. So that was back when it wasn't a pandemic like this to deal with. It was another very scary thing going on. Polio was just as scary because they didn't know what was causing it. And a lot of kids were not allowed to go places and go out and play with their friends and all of that because nobody knew what was going on. So it was just another one of those invisible, scary things. So how many of you are from around here? Are you guys all from the Toledo area, or some of you from away? Some of you are from away?
I'm from Michigan.
Michigan, okay, cool. What part of Michigan?
A little bit south of Detroit, a little island called Groseal.
Oh, cool. Groseal, that's how they pronounce it?
Yep, everybody always pronounces it wrong.
Yeah, Groseal, yeah, I know. So Groseal, that's very nice, very French. So, okay, well, they've got a Center for Independent Living up there. We are a Center for Independent Living. The reason I kind of ask, how many are from around here, because I tell a couple of stories that are kind of locally related, and some of you, you'll get the gist of the story, but you might not get some of the references. But anyway, but I'm from a Center for Independent Living. So how many of you have heard of that, a Center for Independent Living? No? I got to get on our PR people about this, but no, a Center for Independent Living, and it's not that you shouldn't know what it is, or that you should know what it is, because it's an organization that serves people with disabilities. If you're not living with disabilities, or you don't have connections with people with disabilities, then you more than likely can't have any understanding of us. We're kind of behind what we call a disability bubble. So a Center for Independent Living, just so you know what it is, it's an organization that serves people with disabilities. We help people to live as independently and as well as possible in their communities. And we do that through a number of ways, through programming, through partnering with other organizations, through providing assistance to people when they need it. So, but a Center for Independent Living, by its bylaws, is at least 51% staffed and board. The staff of the Ability Center and of a Center for Independent Living is at least 51% people living with disabilities, either themselves or connected in some way. Hey, Amy, how you doing? Or connected in some way that they have an understanding of disability. Maybe they have a child with a disability or a family member with a disability. So, and it's the same with our board of directors, 51%. And that way, when people call us looking for answers to their questions, chances are they're going to be talking to somebody who is not only a professional, but also an expert. They don't just do it 10 hours a day. They live and breathe it. So they're doing it 24/7, 365. And that adds some honesty and some integrity and understanding of disability that you may not get in a lot of other places. So, we are one of about 550 across the country. So that way, wherever you land as nurses, there's probably a Center for Independent Living not too far away from you. And I'd really like you to take some time to get to know where that place is, because if they're anything like us, and not all CILs are the same, some have more funding, some have more staff, some have more resources than others, but they all have the same basic tenet of making life better for people living with disabilities. So it's just a great tool for you to have in your pocket as nurses, because people, when they go through stuff, it's always good to find other people out there that they can connect with, that can help them get the answers they need, so they're not having to reinvent the wheel. So so you guys are 4th year, you're getting ready to fledge out. So when you stop and think about disability, well, let me just tell you a little bit more about what we do. just so you understand. We do everything from advocacy to building ramps. We do individual advocacy. If you were somebody with a disability and you're having an issue, let's say with employment or with going to school or with getting into a building or with public transportation or finding housing, and you feel like you've been discriminated against or are being, excuse me, or are being discriminated against, you can certainly come and talk to us. We have a disability rights lawyer and a staff of advocates that can help you advocate for what you need. And if there is somebody out there doing something wrong, we can help you follow up with whatever that involves. So that's individual advocacy. We also do systemic advocacy where we're trying to change laws. And an example of that, we have a ramp program. We do ramping for people that need that. And we do permanent wooden ramps, but we also do aluminum ramps. And the aluminum ramps that we use, those are more for temporary situations or for situations where wood won't work. And so some of the advocacy we do, there's a catch-22 in the Medicaid system that when you are discharged from a hospital and you are sent to rehab, or what some folks call rehab, but other people call nursing facilities, for any kind of healing and all of that goes on, and you want to leave there, and let's say you are a chair user and your home is not accessible, they cannot legally release you to go home if you do not have an accessible home to go home to. So you're stuck there until you have a ramp. And the way Medicaid works is they will pay for a ramp on your home, a permanent ramp, but you have to be living there. So if you're not living there, you can't get the ramp. So there's this catch-22. So we've done some systemic advocacy with Medicaid to help them change that law. And because legislation typically moves so slowly, and you just don't get things overnight, we got them to at least provide waiver money to help pay for coming in and putting in a temporary ramp so that you have that metal ramp, then you can get discharged, you can go home and then file for the complete ramp. So that's a way around some of the systems out there. And our lawyers do a lot of that. And so we do a lot of other types of advocacy. We've got a lot of real wins under our belt for making life better for people living with disabilities, not just in Toledo, but in Ohio and across the country. So that's another thing that we do. Along with the ramping, we do home modifications. We can go in and put grab bars in for somebody that might need them. We can do minor modifications to homes. If it's anything bigger than that, we have contractors that we trust and value, and we utilize them to do those kinds of big ticket things that people might need. Because as you know, most homes aren't made for somebody living with a disability, especially if that person happens to use a chair. So we do that. We also have a dog program, an assistance dogs program. And we do service dogs and we do therapy dogs. Now, a service dog would be somebody that might help me if I have a hard time picking things up off the floor or getting undressed. Let's say I live independently and I need help with dressing or with laundry, stuff like that. You can teach dogs all kinds of wonderful things. And so you've got this companion that will go along with you, providing stuff to help you get through your day independently. I mean, we've even trained dogs to go to the refrigerator, open the refrigerator, grab the meds, bring the meds back, shut the refrigerator, bring the meds back. So that's like multiple commands in a command. So, dogs can be taught to do amazing things. We're working on driving, but it hasn't been going so well with the driving program. No, I'm just kidding. But we also have therapy dogs that are more for emotional support, or let's say you're a young person with autism and you've been having a difficult time with socialization. These dogs can help you with that. They also can be placed in schools. We have dogs that are trained to be placed in schools, and they're just there to provide therapy to the various kids in the school, and it actually becomes owned by the school, and somebody at the school takes the dog home and brings it in every day. It isn't just somebody bringing a dog in for you to get some therapy every once in a while, then the dog leaves. There's real ownership here because the dog is owned by the school. So that's another program that we have. We also do peer support where we can come into let's say you're working at a hospital and you're working with somebody who's newly injured and they want to speak with somebody. We can send somebody in to talk to that individual based on whatever their disability is, and if we have somebody that can understand some of that. Other things that we do, we have probably the biggest thing we do is information or referral. It's just answering questions for people that need those answers. My mom just had a stroke. What do we do? My son was just diagnosed with whatever. What do we do? How do I get a blue card for my car? Things like that. How do I sign up for SSDI? So, a lot of what we do is just answering questions. And we, in that type of a situation, we partner with almost, with thousands of other organizations that may know better what someone might need. Let's say it's a mental health issue. We aren't really mental health experts, but we are connected with the ZEF Center and some of the other centers that do mental health. And so we're just basically a clearinghouse, a hub, if you will, where people can call in, get, tell us what they're looking for, and then we point them in a direction or give them the answer. So we also have a huge equipment loan department at the Ability Center. So we've got everything from grab bars to commode chairs to rollators to walkers to crutches to hospital beds. We've just got a whole big closet of stuff, and we've got people that will come and donate a $25,000 wheelchair that Dad only used a couple of times before he passed, and it's just been sitting in the garage. And what do? Well, we can take that chair and put it in the hands of somebody who doesn't have insurance and make their life a lot better by giving them something that they could really benefit from. So that's, we do all kinds of stuff from cradle to grave. We help young kids that are just learning about their disabilities. We help parents who have just had a child diagnosed or born with a disability, so we can provide support right there, because typically it's not what they were thinking was going to happen, and so suddenly they're surprised and overwhelmed by what do we do next kind of stuff. So we can help with that, all the way through helping kids that are transitioning out of high school. You guys, I'm sure, know that when you look at the education system in America, you've got regular ed, you've got special ed. So you got two big boxes. And so we teach our children, we talk to them about, oh, you're going to love school. It's great. You're going to make all kinds of friends. You're going to learn all kinds of stuff, all of that. But then when you get the kids there, because they've got these two big boxes, some professional is forced to test them, find out which box they fit in. If they fit in a regular ed box, well, the sky's the limit. There's college track, there's everything that they can think of. But if they happen to get stuck in the SPED box, the special ed box, well, they keep getting willed on until they're down to just their own little box, their IEP. And in many cases, if you don't have a real progressive administration or real progressive teachers or advocates or a parent that's willing to say no to what's easy and challenge the system, they're not going to get what they need over the course of their school lifetime to be ready for adulthood, to be ready for college. They're not going to get what we call the soft skills of, going out, falling down, getting scraped up, find out how they fit into the world, and, being, friends with other people and all of that stuff. There's all of that alienation and stuff. So we have a program called Next Steps that we work with people that are just graduating out of high school and are looking to want to go on to college or live on their own. So we can help teach them about finances and how to use, transportation, and how to build study groups, and how to, give an interview for a job, and all of that stuff that we all, learn to do as we reach adulthood. So we do that sort of thing. One of the other big, huge things we do at the other end of that life spectrum is we help get people out of nursing facilities. We basically helped write the home choice program for Ohio, and that program was implemented all over. It's the way to do it. It's the way to get people out of nursing homes, because not everybody needs to live in a nursing home, and nobody wants to live in a nursing home. I mean, none of you guys are looking forward to living in a nursing home, right? Well, that's just the way it is. Nursing homes are nursing homes, and we've all heard stories. So But, you know, over the course of this program that we've been doing from the early 2000s, we've gotten almost 900 people out of nursing homes. So if not more by now, I don't know. But we were right around 900 last I heard. So that's a lot of people that are now back out in community, living their lives and not having to sit in the hallway somewhere and wait for dinner, or, you know, get put to bed when, you know, when they say you should go to bed and all of that stuff. So that's another wonderful benefit that we do. So, you know, the Ability Center is there for anybody who needs it. Anybody who, we don't just work with people with disabilities. We also work with public entities. You know, we've got great partnerships with the Metro Parks, with the City of Toledo, with the, you know, the Fifth Third Field and Huntington Center and all these different places that we've helped out over the years. The Arts Commission, we're doing some stuff with the Arts Commission now. The Museum of Art, we're helping them with their transition plan as they work to make the front of the place accessible. So, you know, we offer input there, and we offer, you know, insight into what's the best way to make your building, your program, your social offering, your restaurant, your whatever, work best for everybody. So, you know, there are laws out there. You know, we just celebrated the 30th anniversary of the ADA this year. So that's the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so you've got, you know, we're still struggling for access when we should have had it 30 years now, right? So we're still struggling to get into some places. Think about some of the places that you go that still have steps and still have things going on that make them inaccessible. So that's something to think about. And so that's what we do. We just help everybody and anybody that is looking to make life better for people with disabilities. We have a huge initiative right now as we step into our second 100 years, is to ask the question, what is it that would make Toledo the most disability friendly community in the country? And we're working with people to do that by, you know, helping them address programs and access. So, I mean, we're already off to a good start. We live in Northwest Ohio. It's flat as a pancake, which is great for wheelchair users. You know, it's not like, you know, up in Evergreen, Colorado, or in Morrison, trying to get into the Morrison Inn, you know, with a 30-degree grade from the driveway. You know, it's just, you know, so being here is we're halfway there as far as access. So, but there's a lot of kinds of access. There's access to housing. You know, there's access to employment. There's access to buildings. There's, you know, access to healthcare. So there's a lot of initiatives that we're working with to, you know, these are all opportunities for Toledo to grow and become the most accessible place in the country. So what does that mean for you guys as nurses? You know, what is it that you can do to help out? What is it that we can do for you? Well, a lot of what goes on in nursing is working with people who may be suddenly looking at life differently, as living life differently, right? Things happen, trauma happens, and lives change. And what you guys know as nurses in that time that you're with somebody can make all the difference between how they move on. You know, we all know that in healthcare these days, you know, you don't get a lot of time with patients. They're just schlepped through as fast as they can be schlepped through. And I mean, I'm not even talking about the pandemic. That's a whole different thing. But when somebody is, depending on where you work in a hospital or in healthcare, you know, 5 minutes ago, an hour ago, a day ago, this person that you're working with had no idea they'd be doing this, right? Lying in a hospital bed, going through whatever it is that they're going through. You know, it wasn't part of their life plan. And now they're having to deal with something, and they're probably scared to death. A lot of times when we go into the hospital, you know, we're, especially if it's in a situation where there's trauma involved, or you know, something other than a scheduled surgery where everything's going to be fine, you know, then if it's unexpected, it's scary. It's you're going through something, like I said, that you weren't expecting, and try to wrap your head around where they are where they are in their lives and with what they're going through and how connected they are to disability. And what you'll find is probably most people that you deal with have no connection to disability. Do any of you guys have connections to disability? Did any of you grow up with a grandma, grandpa, brother, sister, mom, dad, somebody in your life that lived differently? Anybody?
My grandpa had Parkinson's, and near the end of his life, he had a hospital bed in his house and a nurse that would come and help my grandma take care of him.
So you actually saw grandpa decline into that, I imagine, and go through all of that. So, but you also know, even though he was living with Parkinson's, he was still your grandpa, right? And you knew there was a lot more to him than that label of a disability, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, that's some of the things that you got when you grow up with somebody in your life, or you have that kind of understanding. You know that they are way more than their disability, that they're way more than whatever it is that they're going through. So that's a real advantage, because right now, typically, most people out there in the world really don't have an understanding of disability. They only have what they have to go on is what they think they know, right? So let me share one of my stories with you real quick. My injury actually happened back in 1980, before like almost everybody here was born. But it was in 1980. I rolled my Camaro and broke my neck. I'm a C5/6 quad. A week before my accident, I was at St. Charles Hospital. You guys all know where St. Charles is, over on the east side of Toledo there. So yeah, that's I live out this way. I'm out in the suburbs of Lucky, Ohio right now. But a week before my accident, I'm up visiting a friend of mine, and she'd fallen off the back of a moving motorcycle. So she kind of buggered up her heel, and that's medical terminology. So she buggered up her heel. So I was in visiting, and in comes a gaggle of nurses. I don't know what you call a bunch of nurses, but I call them a gaggle of nurses. And they come in with this, push cart with all this highly technical and dangerous heel bandaging equipment. And they asked me to step out in the hallway while they do whatever it is that they need to do to her heel. So I do. And out in the hallway is a wheelchair. So what do? Get in it, right? Start rolling around. That's what I did. I didn't know anything about wheelchair etiquette. I didn't know that it might be somebody's wheelchair, and maybe that door is going to open and somebody's going to fall over because their chair is not there. I'm just rolling around in this wheelchair. So I'm rolling around the wheelchair, and they just carpeted the hallway. So I'm rolling on this carpeting, and I'm feeling it immediately in my shoulders, right? Because you're using muscles you don't normally use to ambulate. And I'm just rolling along. I go around this corner, and there's these double doors to ICU, and then there's a drinking fountain right there. And this is 1980, so there weren't like a lot of accessible drinking fountains back then. I don't think there was actually any accessible drinking fountains in 1980. This was a big, tall, rectangular one, setting off in the cubby hole a little, so you don't hit it with beds going by. So in order for me to get a drink, I had to get out of the chair, and that got me thinking about all the other things I wouldn't be able to do if I was ever a chair user. So I started thinking, I wouldn't be able to run in the fields with my dogs. I used to raise Irish setters. I wouldn't be able to go whitewater rafting. I used to do the New and Nagali. I wouldn't be able to go scuba diving. I was a PADI diver from my time in the Air Force. I wouldn't be able to, travel the world. I mean, how do you travel the world in a wheelchair, right? How do you get on and off an airplane? I have no idea. So, I wouldn't be able to probably, fall in love, get married, have kids, all this stuff, because who's going to love somebody in a wheelchair, right? This is the stuff that was going through my head back then. So basically, when I got back to point A and got out of the chair to go back in and see my friend, after thinking about all of this, I remember saying to myself, yeah, I think I'd rather be dead than be in a wheelchair. So that's what I thought. And I remember that like it was yesterday. So flash ahead a week, and this is the ironic part of the story. I'm right back in that same hospital after my life flight trip from my car accident. See, now when I rolled my Camaro, I had fallen asleep, and I'd gone through a stop sign, and I got hit by a car doing 65 miles an hour right in my passenger side. And so that flipped me end over end down into a ditch and upside down. I was in my car, out of my car, and under my car all at once. So, here I am a week later, laying in a hospital bed just through those double doors in ICU at St. Charles, just past the drinking fountain, Crutchfield tongs, broken neck, C5-6 incomplete injury, looking at life in a wheelchair. And I remember saying, maybe I'll give it a shot, because it's what you do, right? If you want something bad enough, like to live, you find a way to do that. So I will tell you that in the last 40 years, this October, of pushing my ever bigger butt around in this chair, I've gone whitewater rafting again. I've gone scuba diving again. I've been in the fields with my dogs. I was there in my chair, but I was there. I've been all over the United States. I've taken people skydiving through the Ability Center. I've been all over the world. I've been in Russia, England, Germany, Denmark, Lithuania, Iceland, all over the United States and Canada because of the chair, doing this, speaking. And I also went on to fall in love. I have a lovely wife, Beth, who is a recovering OT, because you got to know quads and OTs, they find each other in the world and get married, fall in love, get married. She wasn't my OT. I met her at a conference in Chicago. That's a whole other romantic love story. But anyway, and then we have a beautiful son, Taylor, who is right now starting his last class of the day at Bowling Green. He's starting his senior year in sports management. So a little rocker, he rides a Harley and all the other stuff that his dad did when he was a kid. And so, so basically what I'm saying here is that all that stuff I thought I knew about what it is to live with a disability, enough to make me want to say I'd rather be dead than be in a wheelchair, all that was wrong. It wasn't based on anything real. It was based on what I'd read in books, seen in movies, all of that stuff. So not on anything real. But that fate, worse than death mentality is probably what's going to be happening inside the head of those people that you're working with in those beds when they're going through trauma and scared to death. And what you guys know about what's possible, that life can go on, that you can do great things, that you can go back to work, depending on what you did, or you can find something that life can still be rich and full and happy and all of that stuff, for you guys to know that and impart that upon them, to be able to say to them, I know it's scary right now, but it gets better. It gets better. That means a lot. That means a lot to somebody, and that can really give them some hope to maybe, believe that themselves. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing about, you guys working with folks, because we know that the way healthcare is these days, you don't really get a lot of time to really focus on things. When I went through this in 1980, I had 11 weeks of rehab, of acute care, 11 weeks of acute care at St. Charles. And then I went to University of Michigan for 8 months of rehab. So that was a whole different time and a whole different world. I had time to not only work on actually physically healing, but I had time to work on psychosocial issues, find out who I am, how I fit in the world, all that stuff that we all need to know. So, but right now you don't get that, right? Nowadays, the minute you're sitting up and can't think, boom, you're going out. And you're not even typically going to a real rehab place unless you have something pretty significant happen to you. They're going to boot you out to one of these nursing facilities where you may or may not get all that you need. It's all outpatient now. It's just a whole different world in healthcare. There's a great quote by Gore Vidal that that's really kind of scary when you think about it, but it'll help you understand as a nurse why people fly right through. And that is, he said that we're the only industrialized country on the planet where the majority of the medical decisions are made by insurance companies. So these aren't decisions being made by you, the nurses in the trenches that know the people best. These are being made by people out there somewhere a long ways away, looking at a screen, looking at what you're going through and saying, I'm sorry, but we've got dividend holders out there that we need to pay. And so we need to, make money. We need to move things along. So get them up and out. And the people that are closest to these individuals, closest to the reality of the situation, are going to be saying to yourself, gosh, if they would have just had, one more day or 2 more days, they would have been so much better off. So, and I think Amy, you could probably attest to that. You've seen that probably out there in the world. Do you want to say something?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's just so different how fast, you know, patients are expected to recover and go out into the world or long-term healthcare after the hospital. It's just so different. That's why it's, you know, so important as a nurse to know your community resources so you can educate the family. You know, it might not be the time to educate the patient, but
Right.
you know, educating the family.
Yeah, because they're thrown into instant caregiver roles just like that. Suddenly you're an instant caregiver. We're going to put a bed up in the front room, and, you know, because most houses, like we were saying, aren't accessible. So we've got to find a way. Bedrooms are upstairs, or bedrooms are, you know, in places that you can't get to. And so now next thing you know, I mean, that's what happened to me. I mean, in my mom and dad's farmhouse, I couldn't even go back to my own place because it wasn't working for me and there was no support. So I had to move back in with my mom and dad. And I was there for a year and a half, you know, in a bed, at first in a bed in the front room until they finally gave up their bedroom on the first floor and moved upstairs. And so, you know, things happen, you just kind of make it work. But the, you know, the thing is, these are people that are just thrown into these caregiver roles. And you might be lucky and have a visiting nurse come in and change a bandage or do something like that. But, you know, my mom became my major caregiver. You know, my dad was on the road driving all the time. So my mom and family were having to do pretty much everything for me. So, and then that wasn't easy. That was a lot of balls to juggle, you know. So that leads me to another quick thing. You know, when I rolled my Camaro, you know, thank God I was alone in my car, you know, because my car was just destroyed. As I said, I was in it, out of it, and under it because it was so twisted and torn up from this accident. But when you think about it, you know, I wasn't the only one touched by the trauma. My mom was touched, my dad was touched, my brother was touched, my sisters were touched, all my friends, everybody that knew me and loved me were touched by this trauma. So that it's very important for you as nurses, when you're in that room working with that individual in that bed, realize that that individual isn't the only one that needs you right now. All these people standing around the room, sitting around the room, they need you too, because they are going through this as well. So any kind of love, energy, soul, smiling, happiness, anything, just information. People are typically starved for information. What do we do? What is he going to get better? How, you know, what can we do to help? You know, there's just a million questions. Be that nurse that gives them those answers, that is right there for them when they need you, because everybody's falling and everybody's grabbing at straws. They all want to get back on solid ground. And it isn't the doctors that are going to give them that. You know, for me, I remember my doctors coming in like 30 seconds, boom, gone. How you doing? Good to see you. And I just look at the chart, sign this, out the door, gone, right? That's the way doctors typically are. And OTs, I love my OTs because they got me drawing and painting again. I don't love my PTs because I'm still sore from my PT back 40 years ago. Life becomes PT when you're rolling around and pushing your butt around. So that's that. But it was the nurses. You guys were the ones that we fall in love with. You guys are the ones that are there in the dark. You're the ones that laugh with us. You're the ones helping us do stuff that we wouldn't want anybody in the world to help us do ever, because, you know, independence, you're an adult, you're moving on, you take care of your own stuff, but then suddenly, you know, by necessity, dependency becomes part of the routine, and you have to rely on others to help you do things that you really don't want anybody helping you do. And that's you guys, you know, and you're in there in the trenches, and, you know, modesty goes out the window, and all, just by necessity, it just does. So whatever you can do to help reinvest the patient with dignity, to help them rediscover that they are still who they are. They might end up leaving here, getting around differently, seeing differently, hearing differently, thinking differently, but, you know, at the core, they're still who they are. And if you can help them with that and help them to maintain that sense of individuality and purpose and strength to move forward, that's just wonderful stuff that you can offer. So Amy's heard this stuff a lot. I mean, she's been through like 10 of these things with me, but, you know, it really is, it's an opportunity to be the one they remember 40 years down the road. I still remember the names of 3 of my nurses from 40 years ago. I don't remember them all because some of them were just in, gone, done. You know, they're doing the 9 to 5 gone, time's up. You know, but there were the ones that came in and sat with me and held my hand and talked to me and it reassured me and answered my questions and helped with the nasty stuff. And you know, they were the ones that were there sharing their soul and their humanness, their humanity, and all the skills they learned going through school. You know, they were the ones that gave me something to hold on to, you know, and I will never forget that. I will always remember them for that. And every once in a while we run into each other and it's great to see Nancy. And it's just great to, you know, they're just out there and you want to be that nurse. You know what I mean? You want to go the extra mile for your patient and let them know. And, you know, a lot of times we talk about, you know, we're taught to maintain some professional distance. Don't get too close. Don't get emotionally involved. And that's tough. You know, I don't know where all you guys are wanting to work, but, you know, working in peds and working with older people and just being in situations where folks are so vulnerable. And, you know, if there's something that you can share with them that you've been through yourself or something that you know somebody who's been through and has come out the other side, anytime you can give them hope, it's a wonderful thing. You know, I use my sister as an example here. She was a single mom going through an abusive relationship, had a 7-year-old boy, had moved in with me to get away from that situation. She was working full time at Kroger in Perrysburg, managing the flower shop and going to school at Owens to become a nurse. And that's when she was diagnosed with a radical melanoma right on top of her head, just to the left of center. So, but she was like one of those bleach blondes, thin hair, body, baby oils, you know, tanning and just like basically asking for it. Well, she got it. So, but when she went in, I'll never forget the day she opened the bathroom door and just had this look on her face because the doctor had just told her that she had radical melanoma on top of her head. And she knew enough about what that was. And so, you know, she had to ended up cutting a Coke can size circle up here to get rid of it. They cut her down here, cross here, peeled her face, took her parotid, 43 lymph nodes on her left side because it was left of center. Found cancer in 7 of the lymph nodes. So she went through all that, sewed that up, balloon therapy to close up the wound, just very painful, long process. And all the time still going to school to be a nurse. And she knew she wanted to teach nursing someday. So she had them take slides of the entire process, the operation, everything. I can't look at them, I just like pass out. But, you know, but she uses those in her classes now. She's now an instructor. She teaches nursing. She's actually a dean at Chamberlain. And, you know, and so when she goes in and she sits down with somebody who's just been diagnosed with cancer and she tells them that she knows how they feel and they say, how do you know what I feel? You know, how can you? And she tells them her story and that she's 26 years cancer free. Well, what does that give that person? Hope, right? Just think about that. Somebody says, oh, I'm 26 years cancer free. Wow. So now I've got something to grab onto as a patient. So if you're ever going through something like that, it's okay to self-disclose. I think it's okay to self-disclose and let somebody know, because if it's going to help them in the end to have hope or to know that here's a living, breathing person that's been through something I've been through, you know, that it doesn't get better than that. That's the stuff, as I tell people, that you don't learn in school. You don't get that out of a book. That's experiential learning that comes from hard knocks, and anything you can share there is a wonderful thing. So that's how you be that nurse, you know, because, you know, Ram Dass says that we're all just walking each other home. And I've always loved that line about walking each other home. You know, people come into our lives as professionals in your nursing position that you're going to be in. People will come into your life, they'll be there for however long, and then they'll fledge out. And you hope that in that time that they're with you, that you make a difference in their life and you help them to leave better than they were when they got there. I mean, I think that's the best thing we can hope for as a nurse, is to know that we actually made a difference in somebody's life for however long before we fledged them on. And that's just important stuff to know. So thinking about the people that you're working with in the beds, and you think about, where are their heads? When you guys think about disability, when somebody mentions the word disability, and this is different if you've had people in your life, like Claire, whose grandfather had Parkinson's, but if you have no connection to disability, what do you have to go on when you're trying to think about what's possible for somebody growing up? All you have to go on is what you've read in books or seen in movies. Just like me, I had no connection. I didn't go to school with kids. I didn't have friends with disabilities. I didn't have anybody in my life. So when I was rolling around that wheelchair beforehand, fate worse than death mentality I had was, like I said, based on not really knowing anything about disability. So, what you guys know about what's possible for people is really important. So I kind of want to share a couple more stories just to kind of let you kind of get a sense of where society is collectively with their understanding of disability and some of the things that we as disabled people have to deal with out there in the world, because it'll help you realize where these folks are in the beds and help you guys to maybe get beyond that in your own minds. But I do a lot of work with families who have just had their children diagnosed. I used to, I don't now. But I used to travel all over the country talking about inclusion and helping parents who have these dreams for their children to not let go of those big dreams just because they got a diagnosis suddenly or something has popped up. So I was in St. Petersburg, Florida a number of years ago, and my keynote was in the morning at 9 and my breakouts were until after lunch. So after my keynote, I had several hours to kill before I had to be back to do my breakouts. And I had noticed pulling in to this place that there was an exhibit hall next door. And in that exhibit hall was a Titanic exhibit. You guys know about the Titanic, right? Great big ship, went down a long time ago. Jack Dawson dies in the end when she could have pulled him up on the door. Pull him up on the door. I can't remember her name. Rose. So anyway, when I was growing up, the Titanic was like the last big thing that ever happened, because I'm that old. But so I was always really intrigued by the Titanic. So I thought, I'm going to check that out. So I went over there. And has anybody here ever been to a Titanic exhibit? Well, it's full of crap from the Titanic. That just to let you know. So I'm not trying to, spoiler alert. There's a whole bunch of crap from the Titanic. So but there's stuff there that, they can't take off the ship because the ship is hollow ground. So, but there's this debris field that stretches for 25 miles and all of that's fair game. So there's clothing and there's jewelry and there's plates and there's other artifacts from the parts of the ship and all that. So you're going through and I'm going through and I'm looking at this plate. Who ate off this plate? I wonder if they made it. Who wore this vest? I wonder if they made it. Whose jewelry was this? I wonder if they made it. And then you start wondering about what must have been like on this ship for these people in this middle of an ocean and on a cold, dark night with no moon and only the light of the stars. And you're wondering what it must have been like. And I think that the people that are putting this on are thinking that right then that's what you're thinking, because the next thing that happens is you walk through these double doors and you find yourself on the starboard side of the Titanic. It's like a recreation. It's really dark. All the stars are like they were that night in the sky. It's very cold, very cold. You can hear water down below. All the deck furniture is there, all of that stuff. So you kind of get a real sense of what it's like for these people. And we're all like children of this century, so we're used to light everywhere we go. But you just really kind of get a sense of just how dark and frightening it must have been for these people. So I'm just coming off of that human experience. I roll through the set of double doors to go to the next part of the exhibit, and it's like a little anteroom, 8-foot anteroom, just to kind of keep the cold in. So I'm just getting ready to hit the second set of double doors, and I hear this voice behind me go, "Oh, look at that poor man. He must have a horrible life." I stopped. I thought I was alone. I turned around, and behind me, where the door I'd come through, was a bench. And sitting on that bench is this little old lady with these carpal tunnel wrist guards. And she's got a little bouffant hairdo and horn-rimmed glasses. And she's looking right at me. And she had said that. And now her husband is sitting next to her, and he's like this. He's looking away. He's got his arms crossed, his legs crossed. He's not making eye contact with me at all. He's so embarrassed by what she just said. And I'm sitting there thinking, look at that poor man. He must have a horrible life. What? Do I need to like tell this lady about my beautiful wife and my lovely baby boy? And I travel the world. I got friends everywhere I go. I got my own business. I'm living the American dream, man. Do I want to like rumble with this woman right here in this little ante room? And then I think to myself, this is the Titanic. It's hollow ground. I'll wait till we're outside. I'll tune her ass in out there. So now I'm on to her. She's part of our group, but I haven't been paying attention, but now I'm on to her. So I'm watching her the whole rest of the way through the whole thing. She's like, it's so dark in here. I can't see anything. Those words are so small. Those people are in the way. It's like, complaining about everything, constantly. And so I'm just looking at her going, man, who's got the worst disability here? Me or this lady's husband who's had to put up with that for like 50 years. So anyway, so that's that story. Another story, I'm at the mall, Franklin Park Mall. Here's where it gets kind of local, folks, for you that aren't from around here. Do you remember when it was Franklin Park Mall before it was Westfield Mall and now it's Franklin Park Mall again? Okay, well, back when it was Franklin Park Mall 1, before all the changes, there was that, the food court. Remember, there was McDonald's and a little Coney Island place, and over there was Chick-fil-A and all of this, and Lion Store was down the hallway, and there's a Discovery store, all of that. Okay, anyway. So I'm rolling through there. It's like right between Thanksgiving and Christmas in the year 2000. On my lap, sitting in what I call the Captain Kirk seat, is my son Taylor. He's not quite 2. So we're rolling through the mall on our way down to find my wife down to the Lion Store. So we get into the food court, and then right there is that great big long line of McDonald's that kind of blocks the whole way down there. It's like all these other wonderful food options, and you got this big long line of McDonald's. So you got to kind of work your way through that. Well, I don't have a big problem with that because I'm like a professional. I've been doing this a long time. So I'm working my way through the line of people, and I see out of the corner of my eye this lady. She's looking at me, and she's heading me off. She's got what we call in football the angle. She's got the angle on me. She's heading me off. So I'm thinking, well, maybe she's just going to Chick-fil-A over there. She's got her eyes right on me. And maybe she's going to Chick-fil-A or that jewelry store in the corner right there. But then I hear her say, excuse me, you in the wheelchair with the kid on your lap. Well, that narrows it down to 1. So that's like, okay, I'll stop, Mr. Sulu. So I come to a stop, and she works her way through the crowd of McDonald's. She comes up to me. She's all out of breath from working her way through the crowd of McDonald's. She comes up to me, and she puts her hand on my shoulder just to get her breath. Like, you could just do that. You could just, oh yeah, lean on me like I'm a post, So she's leaning on me. And Taylor's just sitting there, being 2, not quite 2. And she goes, excuse me. I said, can I help you? She goes, yeah, I was wondering, is that your son on your lap? Well, my friends that know me know that what I wanted to say was, well, if you hurry, right down in front of Penny's, there's a great big bin, but they're going like fast, really fast, But what I said was, instead, I said, being nice, I said, yeah, this is my son, Taylor. Taylor, somebody I don't even know. So she says, well, I'm asking because my husband and I, we've been trying to adopt for quite some time, and I was wondering how you were able to adopt given you're disabled. Well, the story takes a turn for the worse. So I said to her, well, I hate to burst your bubble, but I fathered this child. And that's where, like, if Taylor was like a little older, you go, yeah, he fathered me. But he's only like not even 2. So I'm just getting ready to leave. She goes, oh, she stops me again. She goes, how did you do that? So let me get this straight. We've known each other for like 8 seconds, 9 seconds, and you're asking me how my wife and I, don't you find that like just a little rude? Well, she said, I just want to know. And she starts to walk away. And I don't like having enemies in the world. So I said, look, I don't wear a watch. I said, meet me back here next year, same time. We'll have known each other a year. I'll tell you then. What I wanted to say was I'm kind of getting an idea why they're not letting you adopt. Because I think we all want tactful children, right? Tactful children requires tactful parenting. So I'm thinking that maybe, just maybe, she's not making it on the tax scale down to the adoption agency, but it's all speculation. I don't know if they even have a tax scale down at the place. But so anyway, so that's that story. So one last quick story. I'm flying back from Seattle, from doing a keynote in Seattle. I'm with my wife and we're in the Minneapolis airport. Now this was like before there was like a Starbucks kiosk in every corner, every concourse of every airport everywhere in the entire world. We were at a real coffee shop, with a big thick white glass with a blue stripe. So we're at the coffee shop, we get our cup of coffee, we move out into the concourse just outside the door. I'm sitting there next to my bags because you don't stray from your bags at the airport. I'm just sitting there outside with my coffee. My wife has gone off to the restroom real quick. And I'm just sitting here people watching, and I come back just in time to see this lady. No, I apologize, ladies. Every one of these stories is about ladies. And I just gotta say that only way I can figure that is that you guys are like caring nurturers. Women are caring nurturers because men could like give a rat's about the guy in the wheelchair, right? So not all men, not the ones that go on to become nurses. They're awesome. But so I just, I come back, this lady comes out of nowhere. She comes up, she puts $5 in my coffee cup and she keeps on walking. What do you do? What do you do in that situation? There's a $5 bill stuck in my coffee. I said, all right, beer money. Well, that stops her in her tracks. She comes back, she stands in front of me with her arms on her hips like she's my mom. And she says, are you really going to buy beer with that? I said, hell yeah, it's like manna from heaven. I didn't have it like 2 seconds ago. She goes, I did not give that to you to buy beer. I said, well, let's talk about that for a minute. Why did you give it to me? She said, you look like you could use it. Oh, okay. Well, I said, if you knew how much I just made doing this keynote out in Seattle, yeah, you probably wouldn't give me your $5. But I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to help me out. And I think if that's what you're trying to do is you're trying to help me out, here, why don't you take this $5 and go buy me another cup of coffee? Because I'm not going to drink this one. And it cost me about $5. So she did. She felt horrible. She comes back. I get my new coffee. We have a little bit more conversation about appearances and assumptions, and hopefully she went away a little bit more enlightened. Okay, so there's 3 stories I talk about the way the world treats people with disabilities. Because this is the stuff that happens to us all the time. I have this relatively new wheelchair. This is my first wheelchair that has push handles on the back, but I got push handles that fold in. You know why? Do you know what happens when you have push handles on your wheelchair? People push you. People just come out of nowhere and they push you. And suddenly, whoa, you're moving, you're spilling your coffee, or whoa, what the? You can't even see who it is. And they're just pushing you. Where are you going? Let me give you a hand. This is what my friend Norman Kuntz out in Vancouver calls an unexpected attack of help. And it happens to all of us. My friend Mike calls those people do-gooders. They left their home in the morning. They went out into the world to do good. You look like you need some good done unto you. So they're doing some good unto you. So, but, you might be going a way that you weren't going to go. I was going that way. What are you doing? So, but that's the thing. People are always looking at people with disabilities as if they are needy, as if they are second class, as if they are, not worthy of making their places accessible for, or they might not hire them because they have a disability. There's all kinds of stuff, that the ADA is supposed to help out with, but it still happens. And what I call this, is a paradigm of low expectation. And it's very pervasive in the societal mindset, right? The woman on the Titanic exhibit, she saw the wheelchair. You must have a horrible life, right? The woman at the mall saw the wheelchair, saw the kid. Can't be a sexual being. He must have got that baby somewhere else, right? The woman at the airport saw the wheelchair, saw the coffee cup. Now there were no pencils in it or anything like that. Thought I could use $5, took pity on me. So that's the thing. So this is the way the world typically looks at people with disabilities. And what I want you guys to do is to not do that, okay? Because as intelligent young nurses, you are looking at that individual in the bed and you're looking at them with from a paradigm of high expectation. You're thinking about what is possible for them. They might not leave there and do things the way they always have done, but they're going to leave there and they're going to do things. And what you can do, what you think is possible for people with disabilities, what you think you can impart upon them to help them not think like that themselves, because remember, they're lying in that bed going through a very scary time, not knowing what tomorrow's going to bring and only having what they have to go on with regard to disability. They're probably thinking like those people about what their life is going to be like, right? So anything that you can share with them that gives them hope, that gives them a sense of empowerment, that lets them know that it's going to get better, let them know that you may not do things the way you did, but you can still do things. Anytime you can let them know from a paradigm of higher expectation what is possible for them, that's a good thing, right? You're helping to dispel those myths. So that's just something that you guys need to be aware of, is that, you don't have to go in back doors. You don't have to, there's all the stuff that we have to deal with out there in the world that a lot of us still deal with. I mean, I can't go into Perrysburg and there's a couple of restaurants I can't go to in Perrysburg. I can't go to any place in Grand Rapids, Ohio, because, I understand, okay, floodplains, all that stuff. Yeah, everything's got to be up. So sometimes it doesn't work out. But for the most part, the world should be more accessible and accommodating and welcoming. And it is in a lot of places. So, and we all benefit from the benefit. All the stuff that's been put into place to help people with disabilities really helps us all, right? You guys all push through with your carts into the automatic opening doors. How many of you have used the blue button because your arms are full? It's just, the world's a better place because of the accommodations we make. Life is just easier for everybody. So you'll find people that will use a ramp rather than the stairs, even though they don't need the ramp. It's just easier to walk up a ramp. So we've spent thousands of years designing our architectural world to be inaccessible. And now it's time to start designing it to be more universally accessible to everyone. So, and by doing that, we all benefit and the world gets to be a better place. So, but the folks you're working with in those beds going through the scary stuff and wondering what tomorrow's going to be like, chances are they're not thinking about any of that. They're just thinking all the negativity. It's like if I were to ask you, or bring up the topic of disability, my mom just acquired a disability. My son just was born with a disability. Where does your mind go? Not typically to a happy place. It doesn't typically go to, oh, that's going to be interesting how they have to live their life. And, coming up with plan Bs and Cs and Ds and whatever works for them. You're not going to be thinking like that. You're going to be thinking, oh, that's really too bad, right? That's just typically where the human mind goes when we talk about those kinds of differences. So that's where they are going to be. So it's up to you guys to help start them on a path of believing in themselves or rediscovering that they are still who they are, all of that stuff. So just to kind of wrap your head a little bit around that, think about, can any of you, and this will also show kind of where we are with regard to the way we teach these days. Can any of you guys name somebody famous who, living or dead, that was somebody with a disability that made our civilization better?
The guy in Game of Thrones who's a little person. I mean, he's an actor, but he's good, right?
Who? The guy, what?
I don't know if you watch Game of Thrones.
Oh, Peter
He's
Dinklage.
like, yeah,
Peter Dinklage. He's awesome.
I mean,
he's one of my favorite little
famous,
person actors. Yeah, he is famous. I don't know what all he's done for civilization, but he is a great actor. I do love him in that role. I thought he was kick-ass. I love Game of Thrones. So, but yeah, so Peter Dinklage, that's a good one. Anybody else? I have to say that's the first time anybody's ever mentioned Peter Dinklage as one of the famous people. Stephen Hawking, yeah, one of our greatest minds who we just lost a couple of years ago. Can you think of anybody else? Now, I don't want you to feel bad because there's a reason that you're having a hard time coming up with them. And that is that you were never taught this stuff. You might have been taught about people, some of these famous people, but you were never taught that there were people that lived with disabilities. Let me throw a couple of names at you, okay? Albert Einstein, Mozart, Isaac Newton, Sir Isaac Newton, and Lewis Carroll, who wrote Alice in Wonderland. Here's 4 men who did not develop typically. In fact, Einstein didn't speak until he was 6. Did you guys know that? So Einstein didn't speak until he was 6, and his nanny used to call him the stupid one, and he did all right for himself as he got a little older. All 4 of these men grew up with everybody thinking that they were odd. People that knew them considered them odd. And all 4 of these men had difficulty in social situations. They did not like to be in social situations and had difficult time conversing often. And all 4 of these men were like really good at one thing. Does that sound like any disabilities you know?
Autism?
Autism. Asperger's, in fact. They believed that all 4 of these men were on the spectrum before they even knew there was a spectrum, before they even knew there was an autism or an Asperger's. So they think that all 4 of these men exhibited all of the characteristics of somebody living with autism. And so if you're working in peds and you're working with a mom who just got a diagnosis that her son or daughter has autism, Asperger's, what's a great thing to tell her? You tell her, hey, did you know about Einstein? Did you know about, what's that giving her? She's going to go, I had no idea. You're giving her hope, right? So that's kind of cool. That's a cool thing to do. Other people like Monet, you've all seen Water Lilies, you've all seen Haystack, you've seen his artwork. It's all light and color playing off of each other, but nothing very acute. Well, the guy had glaucoma and cataracts. Henri Matisse, when you go to the museum and you see that beautiful mosaic on the end of the wall down there when you come in the Grove Street entrance, the big white one with the face, Apollo, that was done in 1953 by Henri Matisse. He did a lot of that lying flat on his back in bed with a long stick with chalk on the end. His whole paper cutout and jazz series was all done because of his arthritis. He'd spent a lot of time in chairs and in bed from a botched surgery in the early 40s. Pierre Gustrenois, one of the great impressionists there as well. His hands were so buggered up from, I keep using that term, buggered up, but that's just what we, there's a friend of mine, just an aside here, a friend of mine, Ed Roberts, the father of the independent living movement. I asked him one time in a hotel room, we were sitting there looking out over Toledo, he'd come to speak. I said, so what do what moniker do you like for us with disabilities? Because there's like a million things that we can call ourselves, Crips, Gimps, all this stuff. And he said, and we're always dealing with, special this and all the different really, like gagged me kind of euphemisms that people talk about, severely this, severely that. So I asked him, what do you think we should be called? He said, I think we should be called paboos. I said, paboos? He goes, yeah, people who are all buggered up. So I said, I like that. I'm going to use that from now on. But anyway, Renoir was so buggered up that he had to have an assistant cram a brush in his hand he had rheumatoid arthritis. It was so bad he used a chair that was a dining room chair with bicycle tires. He had made his own wheelchair back when they didn't really have a lot of wheelchairs. So Degas, there was just so many, Vincent van Gogh, the poster boy for tortured artists. Here was a guy, and I will tell you, it was not the absinthe that got him, it was the camphor. He used to soak his bed in camphor because he had seizures. And now we all know that, camphor exacerbates seizures. So they just got worse. And then he also was eating lead paint, cadmium paint, all the stuff that everybody was doing back then because they didn't know, that it could cause all kinds of things. So a lot of what Van Gogh went through. So he was another person with disability. There's people like Churchill, who was bipolar. His biographer said had he not been bipolar, he would have never made many of the decisions that he made that led them to win the war against Germany. 10 American presidents, FDR being the most famous, a man who acquired polio in his 30s and was a chair user, though they deceived all of America, there's only like 3 pictures of him ever in his wheelchair because it was a time when they looked at disability as something that was weak and a real detriment. So, and others, think of contemporaries like Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles, Robin Williams. Where would he have been had he been all riddled up all of his young life, So the list goes on and on and on, Milton, Keats, Shelley. You can just Google that. So what I'd like you to think about and use this as a tool for helping people to think bigger about what's possible is that when you're working with somebody who's thinking that their life is going to be over because of whatever it is they've just acquired, have them Google whatever that disability is and famous people with Parkinson's. And of course, you'll get Michael J. Fox, and you'll get some of the other people out there that lived with Parkinson's, but there were a lot of people out there that had learning disabilities, Whoopi Goldberg, there's tons of people out there. So you can just, if somebody's sitting there wondering what life's going to be like, drop some big names on them and have them Google it because it's giving them hope, right? It's giving them hope. So this is what I'm trying to do is help you guys to think outside the box of disability because typically the medical model, what we are taught about disability in school, especially if we're in the medical field, there's a medical model of disability that sees it as the problem needing to be fixed or altered or corrected in some way. And then there's the independent living model of disability that sees us as fine just the way we are. What we need is a world that's more accommodating and welcoming. So, the work we do now is to make the world work better for us as we are. So we are not the problem. The problem is the access and the world. The low expectations around employment, the inaccessible housing stock that's out there. There really is not a whole lot of accessible housing stock for people with disabilities. So if we're going to try to create this community that's the most accessible and accommodating community, well, we have to look at all of that. We have to look at healthcare. We have to look at housing. We have to look at employment. We have to look at education. We have to look at public spaces. We have to look at social interaction, creating opportunities for people to socialize and get to know other people, right? So this is the kind of world that we're working towards. And so what you guys can do is to share what you know and learn as much as you can about the disabilities you'll be working with in the field that you go into, if that helps. Any other questions? Anything I'm missing? I will tell you that, for me in my situation, like I said, there are nurses that I know now that, I still remember their names. They were very special to me. And another thing that's really important is, they also saw in me my sense of humor. And I don't know if you noticed, but I kind of have a sense of humor. And my sense of humor it's what helped keep me alive, when I went through this. They lost me 3 times on the way to the hospital in the helicopter. And so, I'm just lucky to be here and glad to be here. But, when you're working with somebody and they have a sense of humor, that's a great healing tool. So pay attention to that too. And if you have one too, because anytime you can lighten the mood in a room, it's when it's appropriate to do so, not like the day after something just happened, but as people are starting to heal and get better, and especially if they broach the humor subject, if they start making jokes, then they're going to be okay. The people that that are able to laugh at what they're going through in amidst the chaos are the people that you know are going to do okay. So that's really important. You know, one of my favorite stories about that real quickly was, you know, I was in Crutchfield Tongs. Do they still use Crutchfield Tongs? Do they still do traction? I don't know.
No,
And it's been, yeah, I mean, well, back when I went through, what they do is they screw, when they were trying to get my neck to realign before they did surgery, they had me lying in a bed on my back flat. I couldn't even put the hospital bed up because there were these tongs screwed into the side of my head, and they went up to a pulley, and then that had weight on it. You know what I mean? So it was hanging off the end of the bed. And then they had the bed up on what they called chalk blocks, so the pulley has more room. And I won't even tell you what happened when that fell off the chalk blocks one time, but that was horrible. So, but because of that, I was flat on my back for like 5 or 6 weeks before they even took those off, put me in a neck brace, and helped me start. So as I'm starting to learn how to reacclimate the vertical, you get like about 10 degrees or 15 or 20, and you start passing out, right? That's just what you do. So they would bring in a tilt table. You guys know what tilt tables are, medieval devices for torturing guys like me. So they had me on a tilt table, and they had me up to like maybe this much, not quite 45, because then I'm starting to pass out, and then you got to put the table down. So, and every time I would pass out, you know, they put it down, and then I would be gone, and then I'd suddenly hear this disembodied voice going, Dan, Dan, and suddenly it all comes back, right? And you're staring at the acoustic tile ceilings because you're always tipped back and they're looking straight up. So I'm kind of, we're laughing about what it's like to pass out and keep coming back. And while we're laughing, my OT's in there, my PT with the tilt table, my nurse. So all the people I care about the most are in there around me, and I've got them all laughing when my doctor comes in. And he just comes in, he sees all these professionals laughing and me laughing. So he comes up to me because I'm like this. He comes right up in my face. He gets in my face. He goes, Dan, what's so funny here? This isn't funny. This is serious. You're going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. This is like where in the movies you hear life. I didn't hear that. And I said to him, I guess I'll save a lot of money on shoes. They bust up, the nurse and the OT, they all bust up. This guy's like, he can't believe I just said that. He says, you're incredulous. He throws my clipboard on the bed, he storms out, and now we're all laughing at him because here's a guy who's taken my disability more seriously than I am. You know, and it's like, lighten up, dude. It's, you know, just a broken neck for crying out loud. So, but anyway, so laughter is a wonderful thing. It's a great healing tool. It's something that you milk and you use, all of that stuff. So, but just on a serious note, you know, there are going to come times when you guys are going to be feeling like, I just don't want to do it, that you're going to feel underworked, you're going to feel overpaid, because that's pretty much nursing, right? Overworked and underpaid, other duties as assigned, all the stuff. And you're just going to want to not put the scrubs on some morning. But I want you to just think about that. If you ever get to that point, I want to encourage you to put the scrubs on, because that might be the day. That might be the day when you come in and you bring your beautiful soul and your smile and your skills and your talents, and somebody's going to be having a day from hell, and you're going to come in and you're going to change their life. You're going to say the right thing. You're going to just be present in the moment. You're going to help them over that hump and help them, you know, this is going to be the day when they remember you for the rest of their life, because you guys are the ones we fall in love with. You guys are the ones that come in and help us do stuff that we don't want anybody ever to help us do. You know, you guys are the ones that are there for us in that dark moment. It isn't the doctor, it isn't anybody else, it's you guys. And I just want you to realize how important you are, how much you mean to people like me when we're going through something so scary and so alone. because those are the moments that's what nursing is really all about. It's Ram Dass walking. You're walking me home for a little while. You're going to fledge me out, and I'm going to be a better person, a healthier person. And in those moments, what makes the best nurses are the ones that realize there's this Buddhist cone that at any given moment, we are both teacher and student. We can learn from somebody as much as we can impart wisdom, as much as you can help me learn how to cope with what I'm going through. Maybe I can help you learn something about humanity too. So when we pay attention with intention in those moments, when we're at our most vulnerable, at our most human, those are very special, powerful moments. And so I just can't think of a field where it's more important to be there. And especially right now with so many people all alone in hospitals, not able to see their families. And it might be your eyes through the mask. It might be your eyes over the mask. It might be your hand that they're holding in that moment when they're passing. And I just can't believe what nurses and frontline workers are going through right now. It's and you guys are stepping into this. And I just have to say, I give you guys all props and for sticking with nursing and wanting to go out there and make a difference, especially at this time when we're going through something so unbelievably big. And I mean, I can't imagine 180,000 people, already, and we're not done yet. So all the good that you can bring to people, to be that voice, those eyes, that person that's there walking them home at a time like this is just unbelievably powerful and unbelievably important. And so I owe so much to my nurses. I do. And I just want you to realize how important your job really is. And I know you didn't get into this to make a lot of money. I know you got into this. If I asked each of you, I know you got into it because you want to make a difference in people's lives. You want to help people. You've been called to heal. And so that's about as cool as it gets as a human being, is to be able to give back and to help people heal. So I give you just all props and strength for what you're about to go through. And I hope you have long, powerful, great, meaningful careers, and you are the nurses that people remember for 40 years. So with that, if there are no more questions, I'll leave you with one last story. You have a question, Amy, something?
No, but you're like 2 for 2 on Zoom, so
Oh.
for
Yeah. Well, it's it's real.
We really appreciate you. Like, you just so heartfelt. This is the stuff that can't be taught in class, and you just hit the nail on the head, Dan. So it's awesome.
It's big. It is so big. It's so big and so beautiful and so powerful and so cool and so, gut wrenching, and so every human emotion you're going to experience at times as you're out there doing your job. And so, it isn't like digging ditches. It isn't like picking up garbage. It is all those are all essential jobs, and they all need to be done. But, to be right in the thick of it, saving people's lives and standing in that long line when somebody's rolling out to just beat it, that is just, it's going to be everything to you guys. When you see somebody walk out or roll out, or, every time it's, when the people come through, they're there for such a little time, and then on they go, and you made a difference in their life. That's awesomeness. It's complete awesomeness. So
I shared with them what you gave me last semester, what you wrote.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just felt like I needed to write something because it was an amazing thing. And I've seen so many of your classes come through. I can't tell you, I just wish I could remember every face, but it's been hundreds and hundreds of nurses. And you guys are just part of that train of humanity and positivity and energy that, the people that are called to do the good work, the hard work, the the real human work. And so you have got so many wonderful people out there that are, you're part of a legacy. My sister's a nurse, my aunt was a nurse. I've just had so many nurses in my life, and I love them all. And you will be the one that your family calls every time anything goes wrong at anybody's house. Call Sydney, quick, call whoever, just call, ask her, she'll know what we should do in this situation. So you'll be like on call all the time with your family and your friends. So yeah, just get ready for that too. So, but anyway, if you want, I'll just close and leave you with one last quick story that I love to tell, and kind of ties it all up. But we were talking about famous people that went before and all of that, and all the stuff about assumptions and appearances and all of that. Well, in the year 2000, Time magazine came out with this article, and this article was about the two most influential people of the 20th century, that according to the editors of Time magazine in their infinite wisdom. I feel like I'm at the Ability Center with all the dogs.
Yeah.
So it was Albert Einstein and FDR. So wow, the two most influential people of the 20th century were Albert Einstein and FDR, two people with disabilities. How cool is that? So I read the article. They never mention it because they never do. So I'm thinking, okay, I got to tell somebody. I got to tell people about this, So I sat down. I wrote this big long essay that I submitted to All Things Considered, which is a show that's on NPR at 4 every day. So in order to submit that, you have to go down to your local NPR station, go into their soundproof room, digitize recording, all of this here stuff, so that can be sent on to Washington to be part of the show. So I went down to my local NPR station, and while I'm there and I'm doing this, just as I finished reading my essay, in comes the station manager, and he sits down and he's crying. And I go, "Are you all right?" He goes, "Oh," he says, "all this stuff you're talking about, assumptions and appearances," he says, "I have to tell you what happened to me just 2 weeks ago." He said, "I'm a classically trained musician. My daughter's a classically trained musician. I took her down to Columbus at this hotel for this big competition that was going on. And we got all hung up on the orange barrels on 315. And by the time we got to the hotel, it was time for it to start. She just had to jump out and run in. And I had to go find parking." And he said, "If you know anything about parking in Columbus, it took me like 25 minutes to find parking and get into the hotel, and then, down the aisle and right in front of the grand piano where I always sit in the front row." He said, so I got in there. I was able to see my daughter do her thing, but he said, "But that's not what I want to talk to you about." He said, "I want to tell you, while I was sitting there in that front row right in front of the grand piano, I noticed that down at the end of the aisle where I was sitting was this young lady sitting there in a wheelchair." He said, "I got wondering, why is she here? Does she have a family member in the competition? Is she staying at the hotel? She saw the sign out in the lobby. Is she like, why is she here?" He said, "I got thinking about her down there to the point of distraction." And he said, "And then when it came time for the grand prize winner, well, it was her. It was her. What did she do? I had no idea. I must have been while I was parking the car. She must have went first." So he said, "I watched her as she rolled her chair up the little ramp onto the stage. She graciously accepted her award. Then she rolled right in front of me, in front of the grand piano where a diva stands. And she set her award on the piano. She turned her chair to the audience and she let loose a 20-minute aria, Italian aria, that just brought the place down." And he said, "And I'll tell you, I sat there and cried through the whole thing, just like I'm crying now remembering it." He said, "I cried not just because of that beautiful voice coming out of that young lady's body sitting in that wheelchair. He said, I cried because not once did I even consider that she might have been part of the competition." And I leaned forward and I said, "Let that be a lesson to you. And let it be a lesson to all of us. Let it be a lesson to all of us. We spend so much time in our lives focusing on the differences, on the wheelchair, on the dog, on the cane, on the hijab, on the skin color, on the whatever the difference happens to be. We spend so much time focusing on the difference that we totally miss the diva. inside. And so what I want to tell you guys is that each and every one of us, we all have divas inside. You all have divas inside. Some of you might know it, some of you might not, but I'm here to tell you there's something inside each and every one of you that is so unique, so important, so valuable to the whole, that if it's not there, if it's not a part of it, if it's not contributing, if it's not in there, then the community is diminished. The nursing staff is diminished. The church is diminished. The classroom's diminished. You know, our jobs as human beings, as souls walking through this space, you know, as nurses, is to seek out those divas, to coax the divas out of the patients that are lost and think that they're never going to come back, that they're not going to be the same. You know, to coax those divas, to encourage those divas, to honor those divas, to value those divas, to share that diva. You know what I mean? Share what it is within you that makes you so unique and so wonderful and so powerful. And so I just think that's really our job as human beings, is to coax and celebrate the divas and others, and help them be the best that they can be. And in so doing, we become the best that we can be. You know, because we're giving and taking, and they're really at a very quantum level. I'm going to get really deep here, but at a very quantum level, there is no place where I end and you guys begin. And I think that's the way we need to think about each other and the people that we work with and for. We might go into the room and that person might look totally different from us. They might worship differently. They might love differently. They might, you know, there's a lot of differences. But, you know, they're human beings and they're lying there and they're scared and they're all alone. And they've got the same needs for love, for friendship. We all want friends, right? We all want to be loved. We all want to belong to something bigger, a community of something bigger, a church, a school, a nursing team. We all want to belong. And we all want to give back. We all want to share our skills and talents, you know, make the world a better place. So that person lying in that bed is really you, is no different than you. So treat them like you would want to be treated. Now, I know nurses make the worst patients. I've been told that by a lot of nurses, but just you know, be that valuable connection to health and healing and life moving on, and think from a paradigm of high expectation, and value that individual and help them to learn or to relearn to value themselves. So I think that's the greatest gift we can give each other, is to walk them home for a while, to share our skills and talents, to help them be as whole as possible. So with that, I want to wish you all the best. I want to thank you for doing what you do, because it is so important. And there are a lot of me's out there that know just how important you guys are. And I wish you all the best. I wish you long lives and lots of people getting changed through you. I hope you get to touch so many people and help them in ways that are little miracles every day. So with that, I hope I don't meet any of you guys professionally for like a long time, because I really don't like hospitals. I try to avoid them as much as I can. But hey, maybe our paths will cross someday. Say hello, and I just want to wish you all the best. I believe in you. I know you'll do great things. I will leave you with my favorite quote of all time, and that's Gandhi's great quote: "Be the change you wish to see in the world." Because you have everything you need right here and right here to do that, to change the world, to make it a better place. So I honor you, and I wish you all the best. Enjoy your last couple months of school, and have a great life. So thanks for listening. If there's anything that we can do at the Ability Center, if there's anything at all, if you need equipment, if you need someone to talk to, if you need somebody to come and talk to someone, if you have questions about a disability and you want to know more about it, you know, anything that we can do to help you out, we are an email away, a phone call away. And I'm available. So Amy knows how to get a hold of me. If you need a guinea pig for a paper or something like that, if I can help you out, happy to do it. So with that, I will say goodbye. And thanks a lot for hanging out with me for the last hour and 20 or so. All right.
For taking your
Oh.
time, Dan.
My pleasure. I love doing it. Yep, you bet. Take
Thank
care,
you so
everyone.
much.
Yep.
You.
Yep.
Bye.
Be,
Thanks,
be
Dan.
safe. Yep, you're welcome.
You
Be safe.
too.
Go Browns.
Yes.
I just can't help it. That's my biggest disability. I'm a Browns fan. It's not my broken neck. I'm a Browns fan.
Hey, I love the Browns.
Cool.
So
Awesome.
Hey, do you mind texting me your address? Because,
Sure.
I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. I will. I'll text it. All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank
Be
you.
safe.
See you
Be
later.
well. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank